Look, I'm telling you, I didn't cut any line. I follow him just like everybody else. Why would I risk missing my flight?
Sir, we just need you to step aside and answer a few questions, that's all.
And I'm answering them, but you're acting like I did something wrong.
We're not accusing you, we're verifying. Stay calm.
ICE agent Nolan Briggs didn't hesitate. In the middle of Harborview Convention Center's main concourse, under bright lights and security cameras, he stepped forward and raised his hand. "Sir, stop right there." The man he stopped didn't run. He didn't argue. He turned slowly, hands open and visible, posture calm. He looked like any other conference attendee, neutral clothes. A lanyard badge. Nothing that suggested urgency or threat. Briggs's team moved in immediately. 2 agents flanked the man's sides. Another closed in behind him. The spacing was deliberate, practiced. This wasn't a conversation. It was a formation. The man spoke evenly. "I'm a federal agent. I can be verified right now. Call dispatch or my supervisor." Briggs didn't acknowledge the offer. He focused on control. "Do not move. Keep your hands where I can see them." Around them, the concourse kept flowing. Rolling suitcases passed. Vendor banners swayed. People slowed when they realized something was happening. A few phones came up. Not all at once, but enough. The man didn't raise his voice. He didn't reach for his badge. He repeated himself calmly. "There's a direct verification route. It'll take minutes." Briggs waved it off. "Not here. We're moving you." That was the moment the stop changed. What could have ended as a quick check turned into something else entirely. Verification had been offered. It had been refused. And now, in the busiest part of the building, with cameras already recording, ICE wasn't asking who this man was anymore. They had decided what to do with him. Briggs stepped closer, shrinking the space until the man had nowhere to shift without being accused of moving. His voice stayed firm. Procedural? The kind of tone meant to sound lawful even when it wasn't listening. Hands visible. Do not reach for anything. The man complied without hesitation. His palms stayed open at chest level. His breathing stayed even. "My name is Jamal Reed," he said. "I'm a federal agent on an authorized assignment. You can verify me immediately through dispatch or my supervisor." Briggs heard the words and dismissed them. To him, verification sounded like delay, like a tactic. He treated Reed's calm as resistance, dressed up in cooperation. Behind Briggs, one of the agents shifted. Agent Priya Desai had been watching quietly, tracking Reed's posture. The crowd, the cameras overhead. She didn't see threat. She saw time slipping away. "We can call this in," she said. "Measured. Professional. If he's federal, dispatch clears it fast." Briggs shut it down without turning around. "We'll handle verification after compliance." That sentence mattered. It flipped the order. Control first. Truth later. Phones were fully up now. A woman near the escalators recorded from above, catching the entire formation. Another person stood only a few feet away, holding steady, capturing clear audio under the bright convention lighting. Reed noticed the cameras and said the obvious thing, calmly, "We're in a public space. Verification ends this safely for everyone." Briggs ignored that too. Instead, he tightened the circle and gave instructions that assumed the stop was already justified. In that moment, this wasn't about who Jamal Reed was. It was about whether Nolan Briggs would allow the answer to be confirmed at all. Before this moment, Jamal Reed's day had been quiet by design. Undercover work rarely looks dramatic. It looks ordinary on purpose. He arrived at Harborview Convention Center mid-morning dressed like any other attendee. No tactical clothing. No law enforcement posture. Just a neutral outfit and a conference badge that matched his cover role. He moved through registration, glanced at the schedule, and walked the main concourse once to take in the layout. Reed clocked everything the way trained investigators do. Where private security stood, where local police were posted, where cameras were mounted above escalators and along service corridors. Not to avoid them, but to understand the environment he was operating in. His assignment was authorized and federal, tied to an investigation involving vendor access and credential misuse connected to the convention. Nothing cinematic. No urgent arrests. Just observation, documentation, and confirmation of identities linked to a broader case built on records and patterns. Reed also knew stops like this could happen. He'd trained for them. That's why he carried a clean verification route in his head at all times. A supervisor contact, a dispatch process, a field office line that could confirm his status in minutes. Undercover didn't mean reckless. It meant controlled disclosure. Say enough to be verified. Never say enough to compromise the work. That's exactly what Reed had done from the first second of the stop. And that's exactly why what was happening now mattered. Because the issue wasn't whether Jamal Reed could prove who he was. It was whether the people surrounding him would allow the proof to be checked at all. Earlier that morning, Nolan Briggs had already decided how the day was going to run. His ICE team was assigned to the area for enforcement operations tied to tips and follow-ups around the convention footprint. Then the call came in. An anonymous tip. Confident. Urgent. Vague in all the ways that matter. A man near staff corridors. Moving between vendor spaces. Wearing a badge that didn't look right. Someone who didn't belong. There was no solid description. No confirmation from venue security. No, check with the on-site liaison. But the language of the call pushed the right buttons. Suspicious. Restricted areas. Badge mismatch. Briggs treated it like a green light. He didn't slow the team down to verify the tip. He didn't coordinate a quiet check with convention security. He didn't ask for camera review before making contact. He pulled his team together and moved toward the main concourse already, assuming control would come first and clarity would come later. One agent on the team, Priya Desai, asked the kind of questions that come from experience. What exactly did the caller say? Was the person supposed to be there? Did security recognize him? Briggs shut down the hesitation with urgency and rank. There wasn't time. They'd sort it out on scene. And that's how an anonymous call, treated as certainty, led an ICE team into the busiest, most recorded part of the building, ready to control a person first and decide whether they were right afterward. Jamal Reed offered verification again. Same tone. Same words. No new information. Because none was needed. You can call dispatch. You can call my supervisor. This ends right now. Nolan Briggs didn't take the call. He didn't ask for the number. He didn't even acknowledge the offer. He responded by narrowing Reed's space and issuing another control instruction. To Briggs, Reed's calm wasn't cooperation. It was defiance without volume. And that made it easier to dismiss. Behind him, Desai's posture changed. Her body camera caught the shift. She wasn't alarmed, but she was alert now. This wasn't a gray area anymore. Verification had been offered. More than once. We should verify him, she said again, careful not to challenge rank in front of the crowd. It's the fastest way. Briggs cut her off. Not yet. That answer mattered. It wasn't about logistics. It wasn't about safety. It was a decision to delay clarity. Phones were up everywhere now. People weren't pretending this was routine anymore. The formation, the tone, the refusal, it all looked wrong in public. Briggs directed his agents to reposition. One moved closer to Reed's side. Another shifted behind him, blocking his line to his bag and phone. The message was clear. This stop was being pushed forward, not resolved. Reed stayed exactly where he was. He didn't resist. He didn't step back. He didn't step forward. He just repeated the same thing, slowly and clearly. For the cameras and the record, verify me first. At that moment, the stop stopped being about identity. It became about intent. The crowd felt the shift before anyone said it out loud. This wasn't ending clean. People slowed their steps. Rolling suitcases stopped mid-pull. Conversations faded as phones came up. Not out of panic, but out of instinct. Something about the tight circle. The refusal to verify. The calm man standing still. It didn't look right. A woman near the food kiosks recorded from close range. Her phone steady at chest height. From above, near the escalators. Another angle caught the entire formation under bright lights with no obstructions. This wasn't one camera. It was many. Briggs noticed the phones. He noticed the attention. Instead of pulling back, he leaned harder into authority. "This is a federal matter," he said, loud enough for the people nearby to hear. "Step back." Convention security began drifting closer. Not aggressively, just close enough to be on record as present. They didn't intervene, but they didn't disappear either. Their radios crackled. Their cameras kept rolling. Reed pointed out what everyone could see. "We're surrounded by witnesses. Verification ends this right now." Briggs ignored him again. He signaled his team to adjust positions, angling Reed away from the open concourse toward a service hallway where foot traffic thinned and sightlines narrowed. Fewer witnesses. Fewer phones. Reed didn't move. He didn't tense. He didn't raise his voice. "I won't go anywhere until my identity is verified," he said calmly. "Call it in." That refusal to move wasn't resistance. It was a boundary. And on camera, the difference was obvious. Because once verification is offered and refused in public, the issue stops being confusion. It becomes a choice everyone can see. The phones didn't just record, they triggered calls. People in the crowd weren't guessing anymore. Convention staff stepped aside and started making their own reports. Location. Time. Federal agents detaining a man in the main concourse while cameras were rolling. That kind of information moves fast. Within minutes, the call reached the local field office. Supervisor Marisol Chen didn't ask for speculation. She asked one direct question. Has the individual been verified? On the concourse floor, Briggs didn't have a clean answer. Verification had been offered. Repeatedly. And refused. Chen ordered it immediately. No debate. No delay. Run the verification now. In that moment, the decision left Briggs's hands. An agent contacted dispatch and followed the exact route Jamal Reed had been offering from the first minute of the stop. The response came back faster than the crowd expected. Confirmed. Special Agent Jamal Reed. FBI. Undercover. Authorized assignment. The tension broke instantly. Commands stopped mid-sentence. The formation loosened. The detention posture evaporated. There was no room to reframe it. No way to walk it back quietly. The confirmation landed in the same public space where the escalation had happened. And every camera captured the moment authority collapsed, not because someone argued louder, but because someone finally followed the procedure that should have been followed from the start. They released him right there in the concourse. No back room. No quiet reset. No chance to pretend it hadn't happened. The same cameras that recorded the surround now recorded the release. Jamal Reed didn't argue. He didn't demand an apology. He didn't stand there explaining himself to the crowd. He switched modes immediately. Preservation. He noted the time when contact began. The moment he first offered verification. Each refusal. The point when the field office became involved. The exact minute dispatch confirmed his identity. He identified witnesses who had been filming and asked for contact information while memories were fresh. He coordinated with convention security to make sure the venue documented the incident on their end, including which staff were present and which cameras covered the concourse. Then he moved on the body cameras. Reed made formal preservation requests through proper channels so the footage couldn't be overwritten under normal retention cycles. He secured original bystander video files directly instead of relying on social media clips, making sure timestamps and metadata stayed intact. One piece mattered more than the rest. Agent Priya Desai's body camera. It showed the internal warning. It showed verification offered as a solution. And it showed that solution being dismissed anyway. By the time Reed walked away from the concourse, the stop was over. But the record was just beginning. The footage didn't need editing to spread. Within hours, clips from the concourse were circulating. Multiple angles. Clear audio. The same sequence repeating itself again and again. Verification offered. Verification refused. Escalation. Then sudden release after supervisor involvement. Convention staff filed their own incident reports because the stop happened on their floor, under their cameras. During a live event, those reports locked the location, time, and presence of witnesses into writing. Reed didn't rely on the internet's version of the story. He built his own. He organized the evidence in plain order. First contact. First offer to verify. Each refusal. The attempted move away from the concourse. The moment the field office intervened. The dispatch confirmation. The release. He attached the preservation requests for body camera footage. He secured original files from bystanders who recorded close enough for clean audio. He logged witness names and contact information while details were still fresh. Then he escalated through formal channels. Internal complaints were filed with documentation already attached. And after that, a federal civil rights lawsuit followed. The claim wasn't emotional. It was procedural. An anonymous tip had been treated as certainty. A man had been detained in public after offering immediate verification. And the only reason it ended was because someone higher up forced the verification to happen. That was no longer a story. It was a case. When the case reached court, it didn't hinge on outrage or interpretation. It hinged on sequence. Reed's legal team didn't argue that the original tip was illegal. Anonymous tips happen. Suspicion happens. Stops happen. What they focused on was what came next. The moment Reed offered a clean, professional way to verify his identity. The legal landscape changed. Dispatch was available. A supervisor route was available. There was no immediate safety threat documented. From that point forward, every minute of detention depended on a choice. The defense tried to frame the stop as a good-faith mistake made under pressure. That argument might have held if verification had been attempted quickly and corrected the error. But the footage showed the opposite. Body cameras and bystander videos aligned perfectly. Reed offered verification early. Briggs refused. Reed offered again. Briggs escalated. The recordings didn't show confusion. They showed dismissal. Dispatch logs backed it up. Verification took minutes once it was finally initiated. The delay wasn't operational. It was intentional. The jury didn't have to decide who seemed more credible. The timeline decided for them. Once verification was refused in a public space with no safety justification, the detention lost its lawful cover. Everything after that point belonged to the record. The jury didn't deliberate long. The verdict came back unanimous in favor of Jamal Reed. The award was $10 million. It wasn't just compensation for an unlawful detention. The judgment reflected something more specific, the documented refusal to verify, the public nature of the stop, and the foreseeable damage caused by exposing an undercover federal agent in a crowded venue. Once the verdict was entered, the consequences moved fast. Nolan Briggs didn't get reassigned quietly. His name was now tied to a jury finding, backed by timestamps, body camera footage, and dispatch logs. His career ended on the record. But the fallout didn't stop with him. The agency faced scrutiny over the team culture that allowed verification to be treated as optional. Internal reviews expanded beyond the incident itself to supervision and training failures that didn't correct the behavior when it first appeared. Disciplinary actions followed, not just for the decision made on the concourse, but for the structures that failed to prevent it or stop it earlier. The case stopped being about one bad stop. It became an example no administrator could ignore. Jamal Reed didn't treat the verdict like a trophy. He returned to his work knowing something had changed not just for him, but for anyone who would stand in a public space and offer a clean, professional way to verify the truth. Because this case wasn't really about an arrest. It was about refusal. When someone in power is given an easy path to confirm facts and chooses not to take it, that refusal becomes the story. Not the original suspicion. Not the anonymous tip. The choice to ignore verification. Cameras don't just capture mistakes. They capture intent. They show who is willing to be corrected and who would rather be wrong than lose control. That's why this case ended careers. Not because someone guessed wrong, but because someone refused to stop guessing when the answer was available. So, here's the question. If you were standing in that concourse and you saw a stop escalate while one person calmly offered verification and the other side kept refusing, what would you have done? Would you have filmed, stepped back, called venue security, or tried to find a supervisor? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more stories where accountability comes from receipts, procedure, and people who stay calm under pressure, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one.